I'm going to share you some of my story to talk about my journey of discovery to show that positive change is possible. It's hard to paint a picture of a young Nicola who was very different from the Nicola standing in front of you today. She was shy, timid and withdrawn, whereas today I'm loud, open and outspoken. A fellow Geordie would describe me as a read proper worky ticket. In translation in English means someone pushing one's luck. But yes, from my earliest memories, I grew up in the 70s. I have a Dutch mother, I'm a twin, and my father suffered from mental health difficulties. But from my earliest memories, I felt different and unusual and couldn't make sense of what that was. There was huge expectations at school and I was singled out for excelling at sport, but hated the idea of being centre stage. I left school and college with little in the way of formal qualifications, which reinforced my belief that I was a complete failure. I experienced very traumatic experiences when young, and that made me feel suicidal and helpless. But I know I am the woman I am today because of my experiences, not despite them. I kept finding myself in very abusive situations, being humiliated and stalked and raped. One man threatened to kill me if he couldn't stay with me and threatened my family and said, if I can't have you, nobody can. It was terrifying. It was like living in a complete nightmare. And in desperation, I thought, I need to see my GP. But I couldn't find the right words to explain how I was feeling because I felt so unwell as well. But I went to see a number of GPs, and one actually said, Nicola, you're a complete hypochondriac. What are you going to come back with next? But I did get access mental health services, and in the referral letter, the GP wrote, this lass was seeing one of my partners for many months and she's transferred her hopes to me. He has failed to relieve her depression of 3 years standing that I'd had antidepressants that seemed to do nothing. She is just plain miserable and perhaps somewhat inadequate. I'm sorry to land you such an awkward problem. I thought it must be my fault and I must be overreacting to the situation. I mean, miserable, yes, but plain, never. My life was certainly not plain and began to spiral out of control. Over decades, I went from straight relationships to gay relationships, not knowing how I was, taking drugs to numb the pain, drinking alcohol to success. I started hearing voices. One voice would tell me, it was a demonic sounding voice like you would hear in a horror movie. That's the only way I can describe it. And it would tell me I was ugly, thick and weak. And another would tell me to harm people. It felt as if good Nicola was battling with evil Nicola. I couldn't make sense of it. It was really frightening. And I remember the voices telling me to throw myself in front of a train and I would physically have to pin myself against the wall. But on another hand, I convinced myself that I could send telepathic messages and that somebody good would save me. I used mental health services for many decades, but unfortunately, nothing seemed to help. In fact, one individual nearly put me off using services forever. She shared intimate details of her own life while fascinated with mine, and it was the first person I'd really disclosed and shared the most distressing, intimate details of my life. But this time it was a really abusive and dysfunctional relationship, but this time it was a professional. As things got worse, I would retrieve and withdraw into my room, and I would rock back and forwards in the fetal position as if for some sense of comfort. And it just felt there was no way around. And I can remember saying to myself, Nicola, if you want to live, if you want to see your 30s, you have to do something about this. Because of my experiences, it felt safer that I'd go on alone. Anyway, I thought if I can help one person not go through the experiences I've gone through, then I'm doing something meaningful. So I got involved in mental health service user groups and organisations in my area, but I didn't believe it was possible, but not possible until I met Sheila. Sheila had similar experiences to mine, but she managed to turn her experiences into one, to give hope to others and to inspire. And she inspired me to become the first person within a community mental health team that was in there because of lived experiences. And you can see there's a very fresher faced Nicola there in front of you. But that was such an important time for me, because as my confidence grew, I met other people who were truly inspirational, made me recognise that my responses that I thought were fractured and damaged were actually normal responses to very abnormal situations. My confidence grew. I recognised that sharing my experiences was shaping experiences for others. And as my experiences grew and my confidence developed, I actually stepped into the waters, uncharted waters. That was clinical governance, patient safety, research. Was terrifying and scary. But not only scary for me, I was a co-applicant on a research project, which was a user and carer-led research project. And the ethics committee said, "What? Mad people interviewing mad people." Anyway, we did go on, thankfully, to be nominated for and win a number of national awards, and presented regionally and nationally at conferences. And we were asked to present at a European conference in Verona, and that's myself and my colleague. Well, somebody had to go. Somebody had to go to Verona. So that was fantastic. But a few years ago, I recognised some of those unhelpful, distressing feelings and responses come back, and I decided to access services again. But this time it was a completely different experience. I had an amazing consultant who decided that actually it wouldn't be helpful to give me a diagnosis. It was about Nicola as a human being, as a person, and about Nicola's needs. And look at my whole Nicola, my skills, my abilities, and it was about making sense of who I was as a person. I also saw a nurse, and I had what was called cognitive analytical therapy. And you write letters, and within the letter she wrote that I was very brave to come back to therapy, considering my previous experiences. And she said that I would be really blown away if I really knew how amazing I was. So I thought, finally, at the age of 50, my story and my narrative was validated, and I could begin to put the final jigsaw puzzles of my life to be able to see the picture in full. And using my experience and my knowledge within work, I was able to do that for other people and articulate to try and develop better treatment for others and have the authority to do that. But it was a fantastic experience, and exactly what should have happened all those years ago. We are employing lots of people with lived experience, what we call peer support workers in our service. But we have a way to go in the sense of we need to make sure they're meaningfully embedded in all our teams, in all our pathways and all our services. And I would love to see a day when we can all be open about our mental health and our mental health difficulties, because every one of us is on that continuum. We are all there. And to recognise that we can be the experts in the driving seat of positive change in our own lives. And I think challenge and stigma is an ongoing issue and a responsibility for all of us to create a kinder and a more tolerant society. Because if I imagine young Nicola again, I would never have imagined that she could be here standing centre stage, doing her bit to spread this message across the NHS and wider.